The impression of being an option because there are problems with distance and access to the courts. So some people say we don't need to solve the problem because we have a sort of a Band-Aid solution that allows us to operate differently. But it will give people the feeling that they have a real choice between in-person and video appearance. It shouldn't be a choice that's imposed on them indirectly. The honourable member will have 6 minutes left and 45 seconds when we come back to this matter.
By members, Déclaration de député, the honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's such an honour to rise today, knowing that the person about whom I will be speaking is watching from home in my riding. Peter Godwin Chance, war hero, celebrated veteran, was born November 24th, 1920. That's right, today is his 102nd birthday. I invite all my friends to join me in this place so that we will send out to retired Commander of the Canadian Navy, Peter Chance, the kind of thank you and happy birthday that only he could possibly deserve. He was a commander on June 6, 1944, D-Day. He was at that point not commander but navigation officer on board the Skeena. He was there in the thick of it on D-Day, having joined the Navy Volunteer Reserve when he was only 18 years old. He stayed with the Canadian Navy. He received multiple decorations and war tributes, including the French Legion of Honor. So today, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to say with all of our colleagues here, happy 102nd birthday, Peter Chance.
It's not allowed, but happy birthday, Mr. Chan.
Bravo.
Brampton, the honourable member for Brampton South.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday Canada played their first World Cup game in 36 years. What a game, Mr. Speaker. I think everyone can agree that Canada played stronger. Yesterday, Kyle Larin, Tejun Buchanan, Jonathan Sorio, Ike Ugbo, Junior Oilet, Liam Miller, and team captain Atiba Hutchinson showcased their talent on the field. In our city, they are hometown heroes. They found their passion and now they are running with it. Mr. Speaker, many of Canada's soccer starts their journey with local clubs like Bram United and Brampton Soccer Club. They enrich our communities and help our youth build stronger bonds. On behalf of the residents in Brampton, I want to send the national soccer team our best wishes and good luck at the World Cup. Go Canada, go!
The honourable member for Perth Wellington.
Mr. Speaker, the village of Arthur is known as Canada's most patriotic village. It gained this honour not through the words of politicians, but through the service and sacrifice of its citizens. In 1942, the Toronto Daily Star reported that the highest per capita enlistment in the Second World War came from this small community in Wellington County. Among those who would enlist would be John Walsh, who joined the Navy within days of his 18th birthday and served aboard the HMCS Wallaceburg. Like so many of his generation, when John Walsh returned from the war, his service did not end. He continued to serve the community as a pharmacist, a Legion member, and as Arthur's most dedicated historian. Earlier this week, John Walsh passed into history, but the legacy he leaves behind for his family, his community, and his country will long survive. Bravo Zulu, Mr. Walsh, and thank you for your service.
The honourable member for Fredericton.
2/3 of women in Canada have experienced physical, sexual, or emotional abuse. Mr. Speaker, November 25th is the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. Gender-based violence encompasses many types of abuses that are perpetuated towards women, girls, two-spirit, trans, and non-binary people. Only a couple of years before the Montreal massacre, MP Margaret Mitchell got heckled in the House of Commons for raising awareness about domestic abuse. Today, the laughter has faded, the conversation has evolved, but women are still dying. The roots of gender-based violence are entrenched and persist in our society, one that upholds patriarchal ideology. 173 women and girls were killed by violence in 2021 in Canada alone. 1 in 5 women killed was First Nation, Métis, or Inuit. Including femicide in the criminal code is a needed move and one that must be backed by an action plan for change. I am standing in this House today asking each and every one of us to take action. From the words of Susana Chavez Castillo, not one woman less, not one more death.
The Honourable Member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, from November 25th to December 6th, we have the duty to mark the 12 days of action for the elimination of violence against women, an important time to remember the women who have left us due to violence. So far in 2022, 13 femicides have occurred in Quebec. These tragedies are a terrible reminder of the relevance of this campaign. Collectively, men and women, let's ask ourselves what we can and must do so that there is not one more. This year's theme, Coercive Control, Beyond the Marks, invites us to no longer be silent in the face of this violence, regardless of the type of violence, because the actions might not always be striking, but they always hurt. As elected officials, let's commit to taking concrete action. We must do everything in our power to ensure that violence is excluded from our future. Let's stand together, and at the invitation of women's groups who work daily to help victims, let's wear the white ribbon.
The Honourable Member for Brampton East.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in the House today to cheer on the Canadian men's soccer team competing at the FIFA World Cup. The last time Canada qualified for the FIFA World Cup was 36 years ago, but 2022 has ushered in a new era, pioneering the path forward and highlighting the amazing athletic talent that we have. I am thrilled to see the city of Brampton represented in big numbers on the team. Out of the 26-player roster, 7 come from Brampton. This team's athletic achievements have been record-breaking, putting Canada onto the world stage yet again. It is exciting to see such amazing talent come from this community, which I love and represent here in this House. Brampton native Tajon Buchanan, winner of the 2021 Gold Cup Young Player Award, puts it into perspective for so many of us by saying, "We don't come from a lot, we must show the world and work twice as hard." I have no doubt that these incredibly talented athletes will represent Canada to the fullest. I know everyone in this House sends their best as we cheer on Team Canada. Let's go, Canada!
The Honourable Member for Portneuf, Jacques Cartier. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the holiday season approaches, I invite people to visit one of the 22 Christmas markets in the beautiful riding of Portneuf, Jacques Cartier. They offer a wide range of quality products and creations from our talented artisans. You'll make great discoveries and encourage local trade. Moreover, this time of year is a time for sharing. Among the organizations doing this important work in Portneuf, Jacques Cartier, I would like to highlight the involvement and dedication of the St. Vincent de Paul Society. Their volunteer work meets the needs of our community, those most in need. I would like to thank Claudette Hetherington of St. Augustin, Louise Barrette of Saint-Marc-des-Carrières, Yvon Cloutier of Donnacona, Roch Bello of Pont-Rouge, Huguette Dussault of Neuville, Diane Durand of Portneuf, and Doris Tessier of Saint-Brigitte de Laval. I want to thank them. Let's help them help those in need. I want to invite you to be very generous and wish you all a very happy holiday season.
The Honourable Member for Kitchener South Hespeler.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to share with this House the incredible work being done by Chicopee Toot Park. For nearly 100 years, this local treasure has provided space for winter and summer activities to occur. Like many businesses in the tourism sector, Chicopee was hit hard by COVID-19. Despite the hardships brought on by the pandemic, they used this time not only as an opportunity to rebuild, but to rebuild better. Having won multiple awards for their environmental business practices from the Tourism Association of Ontario, their commitment to operating sustainably has not wavered. They have expanded their drainage system to capture and reuse over 450,000 gallons of stormwater for sustainable snowmaking in the winter. This project will not only conserve water, but will also reduce power consumption by 10%. Chicopee is a shining example of how businesses can adapt to benefit the environment, the economy, and the community. I ask the members of this House to join me in applauding Chicopee 2 Park for their ongoing commitment to environmentally responsible business practices.
The Honourable Member for Buena Vista Burin Trinity.
Mr. Speaker, recently I had the opportunity and the pleasure to meet with President Michael Foote and other wonderful members from the Lions Club International. Mr. Speaker, from the provision of disaster relief grants, both in Canada and abroad, to the establishment of community centres, they are at the heart of many communities in this country. I would like to express a sincere thank you to 1,400 Lions clubs and over 41,000 Lions members, whose tireless volunteerism is the epitome of community service at the local, regional, national, and international levels. One specific charitable service Lions Club provides is guide dogs that help to empower individuals with autism, diabetes, epilepsy, visual impairment, and multiple other conditions. Guide dogs are an important investment to fostering inclusive communities, and without Lions Foundation of Canada guide dogs, the lives of many communities or Canadians would be unquestionably more difficult. I encourage all Canadians to check out how they can support the Lions Foundation's incredible work. Thank you to the Lions.
Well done. The Honourable Member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
Saturday marks the 89th anniversary of the Holodomor genocide. In 1932 and 33, Joseph Stalin and his communist Soviet thugs used food as a weapon to starve upwards of 10 million Ukrainians. Stalin's brutal regime was determined to destroy Ukraine's identity, language, and culture. But Stalin's communist dictatorship failed, despite murdering in Ukraine the equivalent of every man, woman, and child in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and BC. Unfortunately, Ukraine's very survival is threatened today by another genocidal maniac, Vladimir Putin. And again, the only crime Ukraine has committed is being patriotic Ukrainians. It has been 274 days since Russia's barbaric invasion, and Ukrainians have been fighting for their sovereignty, their democracy, and their liberty, and the freedom for all of us. Stalin failed to exterminate Ukrainian nationalism, and Putin will also fail. This Saturday, we stand together to remember the victims and honor the survivors of the Holodomor. And we will also remember the Heavenly Hundred from the Maidan and the heroes who are dying today defending Ukraine from Putin's war machine. Vechnaya Pamyat, may their memories be eternal.
L'honorable député de Yukon.
Mr. Speaker, another busy summer season has come and gone in Dawson City, Yukon, heart of the Klondike. Now with winter here, people draw close and ward off the dark nights with sports and cultural activities outdoors and in. Les résidents de Dawson City font de leur mieux pour faire face aux prix élevés causés par l'inflation.
To deal with the high price of inflation, but we need to fight climate change.
Scientists and First Nations met in Dawson City to highlight the impact melting permafrost is having on northern communities like those of the Yukon. When permafrost melts, the ground shifts, buildings twist, roads wash away, fires intensify. Landslides bring new meaning to supply chain disruptions when roads are literally blocked. Les résidents de Dawson City.
The residents of Dawson City and Yukon know that climate change are as real as the high prices we are now dealing with.
Government is there to help communities like Dawson City adapt to the climate crisis. We're also there to support those who need it most to cope with high prices, so that Dawson will continue to be the thriving heart of the Klondike for generations to come.
The Honourable Member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are broken. Their bank accounts are broken. Their faith in this Liberal NDP government is broken. Instead of helping Canadians, this government is determined to pile on more financial burden with their carbon tax. When struggling Canadians are faced with such great uncertainty, they need their government to help them get ahead, not hold them back. Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government and their NDP backers need to do the right thing. listen to the millions of struggling Canadians and cancel their planned hike on the cost of living and cancel their punitive carbon tax.
Honourable member for Kamloops, Thompson, Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, in only 7 years, the Liberal government has broken our justice system. Nearly 20 years of decreases in violent crime have evaporated under this government. Canada's homicide rate is now worse than any time since the mid-2000s. There has been a 92% increase in gang-related homicides since 2015, yet this government continues to relax punishments against violent offenders. As we all know, Canada's murder rate is the most reliable indicator that Canadians are experiencing across-the-board surges in violent crime. This past August, Stats Canada recently reported a notable rise in cases of sexual assault and harassment. These appalling statistics are proof that this Liberal government is not taking the safety of Canadians seriously. This is why we need to elect a Conservative government led by the new leader of His Majesty's loyal opposition.
The Honourable Member for Gatineau. Mr. Speaker, this morning in Gatineau, I had the pleasure of participating in the opening of Gatineau 2, the first net zero carbon archival facility in the Americas. A $330 million building that is on time and on budget. Gatineau 2 is a true leader in the global documentary heritage community. Mr. Speaker, the Gatineau 2 building has already been awarded the Gold Infrastructure Award from the Canadian Council for Public-Private Partnerships, and that's just the beginning. This project is generating substantial economic benefits for a region and is a major source of skilled employment. I invite people to take advantage of the green spaces around this important preservation facility and the upcoming programming. Mr. Speaker, I want to highlight the work of Library and Archives Canada, especially Leslie Weir, Librarian and Archivist of Canada, and Nathalie Etier, Project Director. Once again, Gatineau is distinguishing itself, and I'm very proud of it, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Mr. Speaker, off the top, I'd like to send out congratulations to Kimo Linders of Penticton for winning the Small Business of the Year award at the Tourism Industry Association of Canada last night. And also to the amazing Penticton Vs, who just won their 21st game in a row in the BC Hockey League. But I also want to talk about Bill S-222 that will be debated here on Monday morning. This is a small but mighty bill that simply asks the federal government to consider the environmental footprint of building materials when constructing infrastructure. This was my private member's bill in a previous parliament, and I was inspired to bring it forward by the new mass timber technology pioneered by Structurelam in my hometown of Penticton. Mr. Speaker, with new materials such as mass timber, we can build safe and beautiful buildings that will also help us in our fight against climate change. So I hope everyone here will support S-222 to literally help build a better future for Canada.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, today I would like to recognize the 100th birthday of Françoise Poulain. Originally from the small village of Saint-Prosper de Dorchester, she moved to Quebec City at the age of 18, where she met the father of her 7 children. It's worthy of a movie, Mr. Speaker. Suffering from appendicitis and operated on at Hotel Dieu, she fell in love with her nurse and future husband, Joseph Dutil, and they settled later on in their home in Saint-Hyacinthe, where she still lives today. Living in this house is an opportunity to keep alive the memory of her husband with whom she shared her life for 32 years. Widowed at 55, she redefined herself from a wife and mother to a strong and independent woman, a caring, loving, and devoted woman devoted to her family and friends. She was able to pass on her determination and courage to all her descendants, generous, honest, and hardworking people, real good people. I could talk about her for a long time because her sons, Richard, Alain, and Denis, are 3 of my good friends, great men. So I wish you the very happiest of birthday, Mrs. Poulain. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Barrie Innisfil.
Last weekend, I attended a church Christmas bazaar, and I stood behind a senior who was putting 5 for $3 raffle tickets in a cup for a $50 grocery store gift card. She turned to me and she said, "I hope I win because I can't afford groceries anymore." What a sad indictment on how these Liberals and this Prime Minister, helped by the NDP, have broken this country in so many ways. Inflation is at a 40-year high. 1.5 million Canadians relied on food banks in September. Housing affordability and rental costs are out of control. Young Canadians feel that they've been lied to and let down by this Prime Minister and are despondent about their futures. The problems that exist are structural. They're self-inflicted wounds created by a government so blinded by their ideology that it's impossible for them to come up with the solutions needed, and one-time bribe payments won't solve anything. The only solution is a change in government to give Canadians control of their lives, to restore their hopes, to restore their dreams, and restore the dignity of that senior who stood in front of me last weekend.
The honourable member for Cloverdale Langley City.
Mr. Speaker, with December just around the corner, I'd like to highlight some events that are happening in Cloverdale Langley City this holiday season. The City of Langley's Magic of Christmas Festival is taking place December 3rd and 4th. This event happens at the Timms Community Centre, provides fun for the whole family, and features a holiday artisan market. On December 4th, the Cloverdale Business Improvement Association is hosting the Surrey Santa Parade of Lights, where I will accompany a decorated vintage truck. The event collects donations and unwrapped toys for local food banks. On December 7th, the Cloverdale Chamber of Commerce presents the December Charity Luncheon. This event raises money for Cloverdale Community Kitchen to provide Christmas hampers for those in need. The Langley Christmas Bureau, with more than 100 volunteers, will assemble toy bundles and accept donations to purchase gift cards for families in need. This year, the Bureau is located in Langley City Hall and will receive donations until December 15th. Thank you to every volunteer in our community who works so hard to make sure all residents of Cloverdale Langley City will have a wonderful holiday season. Mr. Speaker, from my family to yours, to my colleagues in this chamber, and to all residents of Cloverdale Langley City, season's greetings, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and best wishes for a Happy New Year. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Before we go to the questions, I just want to remind the honourable members that Standing Order 31 allows individuals to give a little bit of a report back from what's going on in their riding, and they last 60 seconds. That's all they allot, and I notice a few of them going over. They're great stories, and I don't want to cut them off, but I just want to ask members to try to keep them into those 60-second parameters. Oral questions, question orale, the honourable leader of the opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Governor of the Bank of Canada confirmed yesterday that if the government had reduced its deficits, we would have lower inflation. But because of the exorbitant deficit we have today, inflation will be costing $3,500 more for each and every Canadian. Now that the Prime Minister has had it confirmed that his deficits are causing inflation, will he turn things around so that Canadians can pay their own bills? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, during the pandemic, we chose to be there for Canadians. We helped families, we helped workers, we helped small businesses, community centres, and nonprofits. We were there to support people so we could all get through the pandemic as best as possible. And not only was the pandemic a less severe health crisis than in many other places in the world, but our return to a thriving economy was faster than among many of our neighboring countries. My opponent across the way wanted to cut. We want to deliver. The
top Newfoundland and Labrador minister said that he's, quote, sick and tired of people complaining about heating their homes in the cold winter. Well, no wonder they're complaining. According to the CBC, the Prime Minister's favorite media outlet, and I quote, the federal carbon tax could leave seniors out in the cold. One seniors advocate said that her members are feeling, quote, extreme difficulty with the cost of living. Instead of telling Atlantic Canadians to pay up and shut up, why doesn't this government reverse its costly carbon tax on home heat?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, instead of mischaracterizing what members on this side of the House says, the Leader of the Official Opposition should actually take a look at what, for example, the Parliamentary Budget Officer says in regards to our price on pollution, which actually returns more money to the vast majority of Canadians in areas where it's imposed. The price on pollution not only fights climate change, but it also supports hardworking families where they most need it. We're pleased that families in Atlantic Canada are now going to be getting the carbon incentive rebate regularly, and we're going to continue to fight climate change and support Canadians while we do it.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Well, if the Prime Minister says I should take a look at the Parliamentary Budget Officer's report, I think I just might. I have it right here, a distributional analysis of the federal carbon pricing. And I go to page 13. The net cost to Albertans, net, $2,282. Saskatchewan, $1,464. Manitoba, $1,145. Ontario, $1,461. This is the excessive cost above and beyond the rebates that people will get. That's what the Parliamentary Budget Officer says. The Prime Minister won't believe it. So the question for you, Mr. Speaker, will you send over a page so that the page can deliver this report and he can believe his own eyes?
I'm not here to answer questions, so I'll let the Right Honourable Prime Minister answer the question. Order. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, remarkably buried in that rhetorical attack was something that was quite important, and perhaps the first time the member of the Official Opposition has finally recognized that there is a rebate associated with the price on pollution, that we give back more money every year than average families pay related to the price on pollution. We're actually there to support Canadians even as we fight climate change. Now, the Leader of the Official Opposition doesn't much care for the fight against climate change, but he should care about putting more money in people's pockets. That's why he should support our price on pollution.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Well, no one's ever denied that there's a tiny rebate. What we have said is that the rebate doesn't come anywhere near paying the cost that people have to pay for higher...
I'm going to interrupt the Honourable Leader of the Opposition. When you're reading from something, it's not a problem, but when you're holding it up, it becomes a prop, and it's not really his part. I'm sure the Honourable Member knows that. He probably just forgot. I'll let him continue. Please.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry that some consider a report from the Parliamentary Budget Officer to be a prop. I consider it to be firm evidence that the size of these rebates is smaller than the cost that people pay in higher taxes. This is definitive proof, and it shows that Canadians will pay more and more the higher the tax get for a policy that has failed to deliver a single solitary climate change target. It has failed. It costs too much. Will the government cancel it?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, maybe to the Leader of the Opposition, hundreds of dollars in Canadians' pockets is a tiny amount, but I know it matters to Canadians. Hardworking families receiving support for the carbon price that they're paying is making a huge difference, as well as $500 top-up to the Canada rental benefit, or delivering on rental care. All those things are not things that the Leader of the Opposition thinks Canadians should get, and he voted against it. Instead, he moves on recommending that they invest in Bitcoin to avoid inflation. Well, that would have destroyed half their savings. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to deliver support for Canadians while he plays rhetorical games.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, those rebates would not be enough to pay for 2 hours in the Prime Minister's favorite London hotel, where he pays $6,000 a night. Let me look at the costs here of this tax. $2,282 for the average Albertan when fully implemented. $1,464 for the average Saskatchewanian. Similar costs for people right across the country. These are net costs above and beyond the tiny rebates that he's offered. Now that he has the evidence, now that it's right here in one of the reports from an officer that he appointed, will he believe the facts and cancel the tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in that very same report that the Leader of the Opposition is touting, it spells out that indeed the price on pollution is compensated for by a larger rebate than the average family pays out in a given year. The average family of four, including families in his riding of Carleton, do better off with our carbon price incentive. That's because we know that fighting climate change is important to Canadian families, and making ends meet is as well. That's why we continue to step up on support for families, but why he continues to nickel and dime them.
L'honorable député de La Prairie.
The honourable member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister showed a lack of seriousness in this House about Chinese interference in funding election candidates. But he found it serious enough to ask his intelligence service to get to the bottom of the situation, and he was right in that. China is interfering more and more in our democracy. The Prime Minister even spoke to the Chinese president about it at the G20. What the global report showed is at the very least flagrant weaknesses in the political financing system. The Prime Minister can fix this right away. It's simple. Will he bring back public financing for political parties? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, our political financing system at the federal level is one of the most transparent, accountable, and robust of any level of government. If the Bloc Québécois has a hard time getting money from Canadians, that's the Bloc's problem. But we will continue to follow the rules. We will continue to fundraise publicly. And we will continue to place trust in the system that we have, instead of wanting to create new systems to help the Bloc Québécois. The honourable member. The Prime Minister should be ashamed of what he said. It's incredible. Political parties' dependence on donations creates unhealthy conditions favoring undue influence. We already know this. The Prime Minister should know. He spent his first term in trouble because he was leveraging his presence at fancy cocktail parties with business people at $1,500 a head. The global report showed that this same weakness can be exploited by foreign powers who want to influence our democracy, and China is probably already doing that. The Prime Minister should apply the precautionary principle. I know he's not too familiar with that, but he needs to become so. When will he bring back public funding for political parties? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, political financing in Canada is a robust and transparent system. Perhaps, indeed, the Bloc has trouble raising money. But the reality is that all political parties engage with Canadians, and the Liberal Party is doing so in an open and transparent manner. The media are invited to all my fundraising events. And I would encourage the leaders of the Bloc Québécois and the Conservative Party to do the same. We will always be open and transparent about our fundraising, because Canadians need to be able to trust our democracy.
South. Mothers, grandmothers, and leaders in our community wrote a scathing letter indicting this government and this Prime Minister's lack of action in dealing with the healthcare crisis, particularly as it refers to children. Children can't breathe. They're ending up in emergency rooms that are full, waiting hours and hours to get care. And the Prime Minister hasn't shown up and shown leadership. For parents, the health of their kids is the #1 priority. Why isn't it for the Prime Minister?
Hear, hear. Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think it's beneath anyone in this House to suggest that there's any one of us who doesn't care about the well-being of children in this country. I know we all do, and I know we're all working very hard for it. As a government, we invested over $70 billion more over the past few years into our healthcare system to support provinces deliver during the pandemic, and we're sitting down with provinces right now to create better outcomes and better results from healthcare, which Canadians, and yes, Canadian families, and particularly Canadian kids, need and deserve. We will continue to be there to support healthcare systems across the country. We will continue to work with all members of this House who, all of us, care about the children.
Member for Burnaby South.
Le manque de leadership.
Mr. Speaker, this government's lack of leadership is opening the door to privatizing our healthcare system. Conservative premiers throughout the country are attacking our healthcare system. and the Prime Minister is not showing appropriate leadership in response. What will it take for this Prime Minister to act and defend our healthcare system? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as my colleague knows very well, we are actively engaged in discussions with the provinces and territories on health care investment, but we are ensuring that we will deliver concrete results. We are indeed concerned by the trend toward privatization that we see in some parts of the country. That is why we are standing up for the principles of the Canada Health Act. We will be there to help the provinces deliver, and we will be there to ensure that the results actually help Canadians and families that need it.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday, the Governor of the Bank of Canada confirmed getting rid of the carbon tax will reduce inflation. This is the same carbon tax that's driven up the cost on gas, groceries, and home heating. This is the same carbon tax that hasn't helped the Liberals meet a single emission reduction target. The more they keep charging for it, the more emissions keep going up. So why won't the Liberals stop forcing their failed carbon tax scheme on Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the Governor of the Bank of Canada estimated that the price on pollution would add marginally to the impact on inflation, perhaps 0.1%, Mr. Speaker. That's 1 cent for every $10. On the other hand, Mr. Speaker, according to the Parliamentary Budget Officer, 8 out of 10 families will get more money back than they pay at the pumps. This helps with affordability and inflation, Mr. Speaker. And unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, the opposition wants to take this climate action incentive away.
Honourable Member for Calgary, Forest Lawn.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that's a job well failed by this government. They haven't been able to fix the environment or the economy. They keep making things worse, driving more families into food banks. 1.5 million Canadians having to use food banks. 1 out of 5 Canadians having to skip meals. This is their plan. They don't have an environmental plan. It's a tax plan. It's not working. When will they axe the tax and give Canadians a break?
The Honourable Minister for Families.
Mr. Speaker, 450,000 children have been lifted out of poverty since we took office in 2015. Mr. Speaker, we have brought in early learning and childcare agreements across the country, and by the end of this year, families from coast to coast to coast will receive reduced childcare fees by up to 50%. Mr. Speaker, we have several measures that we have put forward, whether it's the Canada Dental Benefit, the Canada Child Benefit, the Canada Rental Benefit, that have seriously helped families in need. We know these are tough times, Mr. Speaker. We're there for families. We just don't understand why Conservatives are not. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Peterborough, Kawartha.
Under these Liberals, credit card use is the highest in Canadian history. Food bank usage, the highest in Canadian history. Many Canadians are just $200 away from insolvency. Among 38 rich countries, Canada ranks 35th in teen mental health and suicide. It appears these Liberals have forgotten who they work for. Perhaps they should stop listening to themselves and start listening to Canadians who are struggling to survive. Will the Liberals show compassion and leadership and stop forcing their failed carbon tax on Canadian families?
The Honourable Minister for Families.
Mr. Speaker, I really do believe it's the Conservatives that need to look within and find some compassion, because they have voted against measure after measure that has been there to support our lowest income Canadians and families and seniors that have been struggling. In fact, 450,000 children have been lifted out of poverty. We know there's more work to do, Mr. Speaker, but that's why in the fall economic statement we also enhanced the Canada's Workers' Benefit. It's why we doubled the GST tax credit for the next 6 months, because we know these are difficult times, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives have every opportunity to be there to support Canadians alongside us. They have just chosen not to. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Peterborough, Kawartha.
Mr. Speaker, what's sad is that Christmas is just 31 days away. And instead of worrying about buying Christmas presents, Canadians are trying to figure out how they're going to pay for their home heating, their propane bill that they rely on, that has went from $4,000 to $12,000. That is triple the cost, Mr. Speaker. So again, I will ask, is there any leadership, any ability to listen to Canadians who are struggling to survive? This is not a luxury. This is a necessity. Axe the tax and face the facts.
The Honourable Minister of Tourism.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pretty sure that the Conservatives don't want to face the facts of their disastrous time in government for almost 10 years. 2 million fewer people are out of poverty, including 400,000 senior women. We raised almost 1 million kids out of poverty, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, do you hear what I hear in the spirit of Christmas? I'm not entirely sure which is the real Conservative Party on the other side. Those who are asking us to spend more, or those who are asking us to spend less. Fortunately, Mr. Speaker, I got the answer. It's the fall economic statement. Invest in those Canadians who need it the most, grow the economy, and position for a great future for Canada.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Échemins-Lévis. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Not knowing how to pay for groceries at the end of the week, or how to pay the heating bill, being a student who has to sleep in a shelter, or a worker who needs to go to food banks, where 1.5 million Canadians have had to turn in a single month. Can this Liberal government look Canadians in the eye and tell them sincerely that the carbon tax is good for them? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, with my hand on my heart, I can say that every time the Conservatives have had a chance to vote to reduce taxes, they always voted against it. With 10 years in power, they made Canadians poorer. Mr. Speaker, we will be eliminating interest on student loans. We will help people buy a house. We will be doubling the GST credit. The Conservatives have no plan except for crypto, but we do. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Échemins-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, the carbon tax just makes Canadians poorer, but it doesn't work. The Liberals know that Canadians are suffering due to inflation, but the government stubbornly continues to want to increase the carbon tax. Like the leader of my party, like all Conservative members in this place, will this government stop with its plan to increase taxes on Canadians, yes or no? The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives on the one hand put their hand on their heart to say they care about Canadians, but they have scissors in the other hand, scissors to cut with, because they think we're investing too much in Canadians. The Conservatives should be more consistent. They are the party of cuts and austerity. They want to make cuts in services for seniors, youth, childcare. They should have the courage to come out and say so, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, the federal government unilaterally decided to move forward the deadline for submitting infrastructure projects for towns in Quebec. Otherwise, it will keep $2.7 billion. Yesterday, the former president of Quebec's Union of Municipalities, Éric Forêt, explained what the consequences will be. It will put a lot of pressure on Quebec for it to choose projects as a function of their size rather than merit in order to respect the deadline. That means that projects in small municipalities will fall through the cracks. It's not smart or fair. Does the government agree with that, or will it hear reason? Will it back down on this and listen to the mayors? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, you will not be surprised to hear that we do not agree with our colleague. He says we're not being fair towards Quebec municipalities. He won't like to hear this, but I had a very positive discussion with Quebec's infrastructure minister, my counterpart, the minister responsible for Canadian relations, and I believe we will reach an agreement with the government of Quebec in order to support municipalities and community groups, exactly those that my colleague wants to support. So good news, we too will be supporting them. The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals don't seem to understand what actually happens on the ground, because their role in projects is just to announce the money and then go to the ribbon-cutting ceremony. But the reality is that the real work is done in our towns. And the Quebec Union of Municipalities has said that March 31st is basically tomorrow, and they will be severely penalized. All sorts of projects are being threatened, like shoreline erosion projects, sports and cultural centers, wastewater treatment facilities, and more. What are Quebec Liberals going to say to mayors when these mayors see that there's no more money for their projects despite the fact that an agreement was signed? The Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs. Once again, Mr. Speaker, good news for my colleague. We will not be in that situation because, unlike what my colleague said, we will work with the government of Quebec in partnership with municipalities, as well as transit services. I had a very constructive and positive discussion with the mayor of Quebec City. For example, there is a cost-sharing agreement for the tramway project in Quebec City. We have projects throughout Quebec, and we are looking forward to carrying them out in partnership with the Quebec government and municipalities. The honourable member for Jonquière. Well, it doesn't seem to have been clear. Perhaps the interpretation was better, but to move the deadline forward by 2 years and threatening to keep the money if towns are unable to turn on a dime is almost blackmail. The federal government wants the money to be used quickly. Yes, we agree, but it should also be used in a smart and fair manner for the best possible projects for all municipalities, small or large. The government should collaborate instead of threatening our towns which are doing their best. The government should back down on this. Can it promise that every cent that is not spent by March 31st will be transferred to Quebec and not into the government coffers? The Honourable Minister, I do not share the pessimism that my Bloc colleague is showing. We know that the Bloc Québécois is constantly looking to pick fights, but we, Mr. Speaker, good news, we are looking to work collaboratively. And in the 9 other provinces of Canada, we have found a way to invest this money in partnership with the provinces, and that's exactly what we're going to do with the Quebec government. I'm looking forward to visiting Quebec with my colleagues to share that good news with Quebecers.
Member for Brantford to Brent.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are terrified. Last year, we witnessed the largest number of murders in Canadian history. 15 Canadians are being murdered every single week. Since the Prime Minister took office, gang-related killings have doubled. Instead of fighting crime with tougher punishment, the Liberals are making it easier for criminals to get back on our streets to re-offend. Will this Liberal government stop their soft-on-crime agenda?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, nothing could be further from the truth. What this party is doing, Mr. Speaker, what we're doing in a variety of our policies is focusing our judicial and our police resources on serious crime, Mr. Speaker, with anti-gang measures, with tougher laws on guns, and, Mr. Speaker, by eliminating certain minimum mandatory penalties and allowing for conditional sentence orders in cases where there is no threat to public security, such that we can actually use those resources on serious crime. Mr. Speaker, serious crime will always carry with it serious consequences. That's a more just and equitable solution.
Member for Brantford to Brent.
Mr. Speaker, our Justice Minister is tone deaf. Despite their arbitrary bans and complicated buyback program, gun crime has gone up steadily every year since the Liberals were elected. Gun smugglers, drug traffickers, drive-by shooters, and kidnappers can thank this Liberal government because now they can serve their sentence in the comfort of their own homes. Once again, will these Liberals stop its soft-on-crime policy and focus on making our streets safer?
Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's somewhat surprising to hear from that colleague from the Conservative Party take issue with the $137 million that we've just invested in the CBSA to further tackle illegal smuggling, which the Conservatives voted against. So let's stack their record against the record of this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, which is one that will continue to equip CBSA with the tools they need to tackle gun smuggling, which is one that will raise maximum sentences against hardened criminals who traffic and terrorize our communities with guns, Mr. Speaker, and one that will also address root causes of gun crime. $250 million for the Building Safer Communities Fund. Mr. Speaker, it's time for the Conservatives to get on the right side of this issue, and that's now.
The honourable member, l'honorable député de Charlebourg.
The honourable member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, Laval Police has just launched a major inquiry on armed violence with 150 officers, including officers from the Sûreté de Québec, the RCMP, and other services. Everyone is working together to fight armed violence, except this Prime Minister. His strategy of being lenient on criminals has caused an increase of 32% in violent crime throughout the country. Does the Prime Minister realize that he's contradicting all police services when he says that a member of organized crime firing an illegal weapon is not a serious crime? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, that is exactly why we brought in Bill C-21. And that is a bill where the Conservatives keep creating problems and getting it through. We need to get it passed to target these organized crime groups and bring in more severe, targeted sentences on criminals. It also offers new tools for our police services. We will continue to bring in common sense pieces of legislation to increase.
The Honourable Member for Rosemont-La Petite Patrie. Mr. Speaker, at the current rate of global warming, part of the planet is going to become uninhabitable, and natural disasters will get worse and worse here in Canada. And it's the most vulnerable who will suffer the most. And what was the Environment Minister's mandate at COP27? To do nothing. Status quo. Save the furniture and keep the oil companies happy. An environmental policy expert has said that what happened over 2 weeks at COP just highlighted the dissonance of the Canadian position. That means it's a contradiction. Canada has the worst record on the planet for GHG emissions per capita. The worst. Is the Minister of the Environment proud of being the worst?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to differ with the Honourable Member. We received praise coming out of COP27, Mr. Speaker, for our climate finance measures, for setting up a fund for developing nations to adapt to climate change, and, Mr. Speaker, to commit to eliminating coal, eliminating fossil fuel subsidies, to capping oil and gas emissions, and very, very importantly, Mr. Speaker, investing in the clean economy, $9.1 billion in our emissions reduction plan. Mr. Speaker, we will ensure that our emissions come down and we build the economy of tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Conservative premiers want to take us back to the dark days of private health care. Ontario's Doug Ford openly talks about privatizing services. Heather Stephenson in Manitoba included it in her throne speech. And now Danielle Smith in Alberta wants patients to fundraise for their care. This is wrong. They threaten the very basis of universal public health care and make access depend on wealth and privilege. Will this health minister condemn these measures, enforce the Canada Health Act, and protect patients across our country?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very pleased to hear that question, and to acknowledge the very severe pressure that healthcare workers throughout our country are going through. Second, the patients, with backlogs in surgeries and backlogs in diagnostics. And third, Mr. Speaker, we are also very concerned with the pressures and the ambition that we see across Canada around privatization of our healthcare system. We want to maintain accessibility, universality, fairness in our healthcare system across our country.
Honourable Member for Etobicoke Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, speaking truth to power is not always easy, but it is necessary. Canadians take inspiration from human rights defenders and leaders like Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, who have the courage to speak up for what is right. Her actions, as well as those of Ukrainians, serve as a reminder that we must work together to create the world we want to live in. Can the Minister of Foreign Affairs update this House on the visit of the Belarusian opposition leader in Canada this week and measures our government is taking to hold Lukashenko's regimes accountable?
Good question. The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Speaker, and thank you for my colleague for his important question. This week I had the pleasure of seeing my good friend from Belarus, Svetlana. We had the chance to discuss our new sanctions against Lukashenko's regime in its complicity in Russia's war of choice. We also talked about the brutal disregard of human rights by the Lukashenko's regime. And, of course, we want to do more, and we will do more to amplify democratic voices within Belarus. Mr. Speaker, impunity is not an option for those who commit human rights violations. There must be accountability, and Canada will see to it.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Do the Liberals believe that it's acceptable for Iranian Canadians to drive to a location far away from their homes to speak to their MP with a blurred background about their fear of reprisal for protesting Iran's brutal regime? That's what's happening in Canada. And we know that Canada's spy agency is investigating credible death threats from the same regime against our citizens. They are begging for this government to keep them safe. What more do they need to act? When will they finally use the criminal code, list the IRGC as a terrorist organization, and shut down their operations in Canada?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I want to be unequivocally clear that on this side of the House, we stand with the women in Iran who are marching for their rights, Mr. Speaker. That's why we designated the entirety of the Iranian regime using a sparingly used power under IRPA. Mr. Speaker, this will allow us to go after those who are most responsible, the senior echelons and the architects of these transgressions of human rights, Mr. Speaker, including the members of the IRGC that my honourable colleague continues to underline here. And we will give police enforcement all of the tools that they need to make sure that Canada is never a safe haven for any support for that regime, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Member for Wellington, Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, our questions are not about the overall integrity of the 2019 and 2021 elections, nor questioning that overall our elections are free and fair. We're asking about who knew what when about Beijing's interference in our elections. The Prime Minister, in response to questions, said, quote, "I do not have any information, nor have I been briefed on any federal candidates receiving any money from China," end quote. The government is parsing its words and is obfuscating. So let me ask the government this question, Mr. Speaker. Has the government received any information about election interference by Beijing?
Good job. The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I would begin by echoing the concerns that my colleague raises in this House when it comes to allegations of foreign interference. And that's why we want to work together with all members in this House to assure Canadians that we will do whatever it takes to protect the integrity of our elections, Mr. Speaker. And my colleague knows that we've had independent reviews of both the 2019 and the 2020 election, which have confirmed that the integrity of those elections were free and fair, Mr. Speaker. And we will continue to make sure that our national security apparatus has all the tools that they need to make sure that Canadians have their voices represented in this chamber. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister told the media that he has directed his security officials to share all the information they can with PROC about Beijing's election interference. Yet at PROC, the Liberals gutted our Conservative motion for the production of documents by removing expressed mention of the PMO. So, will the Prime Minister assure this House that his office will hand over all relevant documents, or does he have something to hide?
Here. The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again, I want to assure my colleague and all Canadians that we are equipping our national security apparatus with all of the tools that they need to ensure that elections are free and fair. We are cracking down on foreign funding through the introduction of Bill C-76. We are providing additional resources, quite frankly, to backstop the cuts that were made when the Conservatives were last in government, Mr. Speaker, and we will do what is ever is necessary to continue to have a system that is transparent, that is accountable, and yes, that means also working with the independent bodies within Parliament so that we can have elections that are free and fair. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has quoted the Chief Electoral Officer several times to support his refusal to give documents to this House about foreign interference. But, Mr. Speaker, I would quote the CEO. He said, "We don't know what happened and in which writings it happened. We don't know if money was given to candidates for their campaigns or their personal purposes. We're talking about potentially very serious violations of the law that would indeed taint the election in a significant way. Will the Prime Minister be transparent and provide the committee all the relevant documents, or is he going to keep hiding the truth?" The Honourable Minister. Yes, Mr. Speaker, as the Prime Minister has already said, we are going to work with the Parliamentary Committee, but I would like to highlight that there are two independent, nonpartisan reviews which have confirmed the results of the 2019 elections and even the 2021 elections, and confirmed that they were free and fair, and that's what's most important. But yes, there are threats of interference, of foreign interference, and that's why we are going to make all the necessary investments to protect our national security apparatus, and we will continue to work with all members in this House. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, the Liberals opposed an independent commission of inquiry into toxic culture in sports organizations. I'm flabbergasted. After the scandals at Hockey Canada, after gymnasts have testified in committee about the sexual abuses that they have suffered, after Global Athlete warned us about abuse in soccer, skiing, swimming, figure skating, and, I could keep going until tomorrow morning with that list. Are they serious? What's it going to take for the government to launch an independent commission of inquiry into abuse in all sports? The Honourable Minister of Sports. Mr. Speaker, first I would like to salute the courage of athletes who have shared their stories and who have spoken out about the abuse they've suffered in sports. I hear them, I see them, and I believe them. At the national level, we've created the Office for Integrity in Sports, which can investigate cases of abuse, but which can also investigate culture in certain sports. And I'm working with my colleagues in the provinces and territories to make sure that all athletes, whatever level they're at in sports, whether it be local, provincial, national, know where to turn when there are cases of abuse and mistreatment. The Honourable Member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, that's not what they want. The truth is that victims have lost confidence in this system, and they're losing confidence in this government. They are the ones who are calling for further action and for an independent commission of inquiry. These women want all sports to be cleaned up. We already have an inquiry into Hockey Canada, and now gymnastics is under the microscope at committee. We can't go through all the sports one by one as new abuse cases make the news. We need wide-ranging recommendations to counter the widespread toxic culture in sport. When will we have an independent commission of inquiry? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, the stories we're hearing from athletes, including those from gymnasts, are heartbreaking. And I stand with those people, and I will continue to do that every day. Sport has to be a place that's positive for mental health and for physical health, and all levels of the Canadian sports system have to do better, and that's why I continue to work with all of our partners to make sure that everyone is taking this situation seriously and that everyone is doing everything they can to completely eradicate abuse and mistreatment in sport. The Honourable Member for Portneuf, Jacques Cartier. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This Liberal government speaks out of both sides of its mouth when it comes to English-French bilingualism. It appointed a Governor-General who does not speak French. They chose a unilingual English Lieutenant Governor for the only bilingual province in Canada. It blocks Francophone immigration, and the list goes on, Mr. Speaker. Now, the NDP Liberal coalition is muzzling the Official Languages Committee and preventing us from improving their ineffective Bill C-13. What hypocrisy! Will the Prime Minister give instructions now to immediately stop all measures that are threatening French? The Honourable Minister of Official Languages. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what's important is that the Bloc Québécois and the Conservatives stop blocking our bill. We have heard from people from across the country who tell us that right now it's time to move forward. People are telling us that they want to see Bill C-13 passed because they want to be able to start working on regulations. The Bloc and the Conservatives are continuing to play political games, and Mr. Speaker, that's completely unacceptable.
The honourable member for Charleswood St. James, Assiniboia, Headingley.
Mr. Speaker, since 2015, this Prime Minister has doubled our national debt to $1.2 trillion. Over $100 billion of that was even prior to the pandemic. He's incurred more debt than all other Prime Ministers combined. Just yesterday, the Governor of the Bank of Canada told me that but for this massive spending, inflation would have been less. And so this is a very, very important question, Mr. Speaker. Will the Prime Minister finally admit that his failed fiscal policy is costing Canadians more for everything?
Honourable Minister of Tourism.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to remind the opposite side of this House and Canadians that Conservatives voted with us to support Canadians during the pandemic. If they're having heartache over that now, that's on their conscience, not on ours, because we did the right thing to support Canadians. Mr. Speaker, Canadians and people around the world are facing a crisis when it comes to cost of living. But, Mr. Speaker, while we have the lowest debt-to-GDP ratio, the lowest deficit in the G7, while we have among the lowest inflation in the world, Mr. Speaker, that's not good enough. That's why we're helping those Canadians who need it the most when they need it the most, investing in the economy so that it can grow, and investing in our fiscal position so that we can meet the challenges of the future.
Honourable member for Charleswood St. James, Assiniboia, Headingley.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the reality is that 40% of spending that took place during the pandemic, according to the government's own appointed parliamentary budget officer, had absolutely zero to do with the pandemic. So the member's response is cold comfort for those who can't afford to heat their homes because of carbon tax, or can't afford to stay in their homes because of interest rates, or can't afford groceries because of inflation. So, Mr. Speaker, the fact of the matter is that the bank governor has now confirmed what we all feared. Excessive government spending is the cause of made-in-Canada inflation. Will the Prime Minister stop this problem, stop the spending, and get inflation under control?
Honourable Minister.
Speaker, moms and dads who use the CERB to stay home and take care of their kids did not cause inflation. Businesses who wanted to keep their doors open so they could serve Canadians in 2022 for the Christmas season did not create inflation. This government took the steps it needed to support Canadians, to support businesses, to support provinces. And, Mr. Speaker, I can tell you what we have done in the fall economic statement is support the economy so that it can grow, make sure that our fiscal position is strong. And what are we doing, Mr. Speaker? Responding to the needs of those Canadians who need help when they need it now. What are they doing? Suggesting to people to invest in crypto. That's irresponsible.
The honourable member for Dorval-Lachine-LaSalle. Mr. Speaker, it's very clear that not only have the unnecessarily harsh and ineffective policies of previous governments failed to protect our communities, but they have contributed to the overrepresentation of Aboriginal people and racialized and marginalized Canadians in our justice system. Can the Minister of Justice please inform the House of the concrete steps our government is taking to move away from these policies? Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Justice. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for Dorval-Lachine-LaSalle, my neighbour, for her important question and her excellent work for our community. Mr. Speaker, with Bill C-5, for the first time in the history of Canada, we have repealed mandatory minimum sentences, giving judges the flexibility to impose sentences that fit the crime. That means that prosecutors and police can spend more time and resources fighting serious crime. We have repealed the mandatory minimum sentences that contributed most to the over-incarceration of Indigenous people, Black people, and racialized Canadians. With C-5, we have acted.
For Calgary, Midnapore.
Mr. Speaker, everyone agrees that this government is failing. Even the Governor of the Bank of Canada said yesterday that this government has been spending too much for too long. Even the parliamentary budget officer said that Albertans will spend $2,000 more on the carbon tax than they will get back in rebates. So when will this government do the right thing and cancel their plan to triple the tax on gas, groceries, and home heating?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment. Environment.
And as usual, the Conservatives are spreading misinformation. And let's look at the Conservative record for a moment, Mr. Speaker. They cut $350 million from the Environment and Climate Change budget. They withdrew from the Kyoto Accord. And, Mr. Speaker, for 10 long years, they did absolutely nothing on climate change. And for that, Mr. Speaker, at all the international meetings they went to, they won Fossil of the Day Award, the Fossil of the Year Award. Wow. And, Mr. Speaker, they won the granddaddy of them all in 2013, the Lifetime Unachievement Fossil Award.
The Honourable I'm going to wait till his entourage calms down before I let the Honourable Member speak. No, on this side. We're done? Very good. The Honourable Member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
Inflation is stuck at 40-year highs, and the cost of groceries is up 11%. Rural Manitoba seniors like Suzanne are skipping meals so often that she's actually not eating 2 or 3 days each week. She's wearing her winter jacket in her home. She doesn't have to turn up her heat. And Suzanne is struggling to put gas in her car to drive an hour and a half to Winnipeg to see her doctor. So when will these Liberals stop hurting our seniors and axe the carbon tax increase on heating and eating?
The Honourable Minister for Seniors.
Mr. Speaker, I think it's important to look at the facts. And the fact is, Mr. Speaker, when the Conservative Party was in power, their plan for seniors was to raise the age of retirement to 67, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the fact is the first thing that we did, we reversed that back to 65. The fact is, Mr. Speaker, the party opposite opposed every single measure that we put forward to support seniors, including the increase to the guaranteed income supplement, including increase to the old age security by 10% for those 75 and over, including our enhancements to the CPP, Mr. Speaker. I won't take any lesson from the party opposite in supporting seniors. We're going to continue to be here for them.
The Honourable Member for Regina Louvain.
Mr. Speaker, if you want to talk about just the facts, here's some facts. For 7 years, taxes have gone up on all Canadians. For 7 years, emissions have gone up. We had a better record on emissions than this government ever has. And those are the facts. Here's some more facts. 1.5 million Canadians rely on food banks to put food on their tables. Universities are sending out fundraising letters to let kids eat before they go to bed now at our universities in Canada. This is the Canada these Liberals have made. So when will they get it together and stop forcing their carbon tax, their failed carbon tax, on all Canadians?
The Honourable Minister.
I am so delighted to get this opportunity right now to be able to tell a family of 4 in Newfoundland and Labrador that they will be getting $1,312 in their bank account every year, 4 times a year, cash in the bank, $328 in July, next July, $328 in October, just when they're getting ready for the winter, again in January, again in April. I welcome another question from the other side so I can talk about how we are bringing more money back into the hands of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Skyview.
Mr. Speaker, this past Tuesday marked National Housing Day, and I'm proud to say that it was this government that legislated the recognition of housing as a human right. Since its launch, the National Housing Strategy has invested upwards of...
I'm going to have to interrupt. I'm having a hard time hearing the question. Now, I just want to say, we take turns, and it's his turn now, and shouting questions, it doesn't work that way. The Honourable Member, from the top so we can hear the full question, please.
Mr. Speaker, this past Tuesday marked National Housing Day, and I am proud to say that it was this government that legislated the recognition of housing as a human right. Since its launch, the National Housing Strategy has invested upwards of $72 billion to ensure that every Canadian has a roof over their head. Could the Minister of Housing and Diversity and Inclusion tell this House about the work that our government has and continues to do for Canadians from coast to coast to coast?
Of Housing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the Honourable Member for his really important question and strong advocacy on this issue. Since coming into office, we've had historic investments to create and repair over 440,000 homes across the country. But we're not stopping there, Mr. Speaker. Earlier this month, I launched the third round of the Rapid Housing Initiative, which will ensure an additional 4,500 deeply affordable homes for the most vulnerable across the country. We believe on this side of the House that housing is a human right, and we will not rest until each and every Canadian has access to a safe and affordable place to call home.
The honourable member for North Island Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have been failing veterans for years. The minister has refused to hire permanent staff to support veterans, suspended services for over a month, and is now delegating tasks to a private company owned by Loblaws for hundreds of millions of dollars. Meanwhile, VAC is delayed the contract rollout because workers haven't been properly trained. This is a crisis. Veterans deserve so much better. Why is the minister putting profits ahead of care for our veterans and their families, and will he stop this botched contract?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my colleague for a question, but I do want to explain to the House that this is totally unacceptable and irresponsible question, because this new contract, Mr. Speaker, will give access to 14,000 veterans, that will have access to 9,000 medical service staff, and it will have 600 offices available to them. Mr. Speaker, this will also allow our case managers to reduce their administrative time and have more time to spend with our veterans. Thank you.
The honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For years, the residents of Saanich Gulf Islands have had their pristine environment where we live on the shores of the Salish Sea, contaminated by polluting commercial anchorages, essentially free parking for freighters. This last month, the Port of Vancouver has been holding what they call public consultation. The constituents of Saanich Gulf Islands don't feel consulted. They once again feel ignored as the Port of Vancouver tells them that these anchorages are essential to the Port of Vancouver instead of figuring out how to make the Port of Vancouver efficient.
The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, over the last couple of years, we've seen global supply disruptions that have impacted here our own supply chains at home. And because of that, we've seen congestions at our ports and increased vessels that are anchored next to our coast. Mr. Speaker, I've been listening to constituents on the coast, particularly where the honourable colleague is raising the point. I want to assure her that we're putting together an action plan to address this. We tabled Bill C-33 just 2 weeks ago that will introduce new tools to help mitigate the traffic of the vessels, Mr. Speaker. We will work with her and constituents to make sure that we manage this adequately, Mr. Speaker.
Good job.
I'm afraid that's all the time we have for question period today. C'est tout le temps.
That's all the time we have today for question period. We'll take a little breather before we continue.
Okay, I'm going to ask everyone to maybe just take a deep breath, and if they've got a conversation, they can take it into the lobby. In the meantime, I believe the Honourable Opposition House Leader has a question today.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, it's the best part of Thursdays. It's the Thursday question where the... Oh, wow. Here, here. I just wanted to ask the government House Leader if he can inform the members as to the business for the rest of this week and for next week as well. And I would like to take the opportunity to make a couple of suggestions for the government business. We had the Bank of Canada Governor admit at committee that deficits fuel inflation. So I was wondering if there'd be an opportunity for the government to introduce another fall economic update where they would lower their deficits. And also, Mr. Speaker, I was wondering if the government might schedule a take-note debate at some point next week so that the House can really study the Parliamentary Budget Officer's report that indicates, that concludes, based on numbers that the government has provided, that the vast majority of Canadians pay far more in the carbon tax than anything they hope to receive in the form of a rebate.
Before we go, I may be wrong on this, but I understand it's the Thursday question, not the Thursday statement. But I'll let the Honourable Government House Leader respond.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and far be it for me to ruin the best part of Thursday, although the Opposition House Leader and I may be alone in that opinion that this is the best part of Thursday. I will say, Mr. Speaker, that I'm beginning to think, and I could be wrong in this supposition, that the Honourable Opposition House Leader is making statements and not asking questions, but in the event that it is a question, I'd be happy to respond. First, it is not enough, of course, Mr. Speaker. When we take a look down the list, whether or not it is the Netherlands, or it is Belgium, or it is Sweden, or it is Austria, or it is Denmark, or it is the entire Eurozone, or it is Iceland, or it is Spain, or it is Italy, or the United Kingdom, or Mexico, or the United States, or Ireland, and I could go on and on. It doesn't matter that we have lower inflation rates than all of those countries. It doesn't matter that we have one of the lowest inflation rates in the world. That is cold comfort to somebody who's working hard and trying to pay the bills, and that's why, no, Mr. Speaker, we're not going to stop the supports that we have for Canadians. In fact, I would suggest to the member opposite that making sure that our most vulnerable are protected is critical, and that's why we have a number of things that we're going to be doing in that regard that I'll illuminate in a moment. As to the other question that was put, I do seriously want to say that if the opposition, the Conservative opposition, is in opposition to action on the climate, that have they reflected about what those costs are? These are not costs that will be borne for a year or two, but for all time. So, Mr. Speaker, something to reflect on in the questions that were posed to me. But I can say, Mr. Speaker, that I'm pleased that this afternoon we're going to complete the second reading debate of Bill S4, an act to amend the Criminal Code, and the Identification of Criminals Act, and to make related amendments to other acts. Tomorrow we will go back to second reading debate of C20 concerning the Public Complaints and Review Commission Act. On Monday we will resume second reading debate of Bill C27, the Digital Charter Implementation Act 2022. For Tuesday and Wednesday we will call Bill C29, an act to provide for the establishment of a National Council for Reconciliation, which was reported with amendments from committee earlier this week. And Mr. Speaker, I see you moving in your chair, so you'd be happy to know that I'm saying finally for next Thursday our plan is to commence second reading debate of Bill C26, the Critical Cyber Systems Protection Act. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I was squirming in my chair both when House leaders were up, and I just want to remind, I know both of them have a little bit of knowledge on procedure in the House, and the Thursday question is a Thursday question, not a statement, and not on either side. I just want to remind them of that. I know they didn't do it on, well, I'll let the jury out on that. But anyways, I just want to point that out again before we proceed to the point of order being put forward by the Honourable Member for Perth Wellington. Please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I would just draw your attention to the article, It Being Thursday, the weekly business statement in minority and majority parliaments, which does a great job, I might say, of outlining the evolution of the Thursday question, and frankly, the wonderful statement that the minister or the member from Regina Capel did. And frankly, if we go back in history to the Liberals when they were last in power, you would find that actually it was a time where the Liberals used it as a partisan shenanigan, and it was actually the Conservatives who were able to rein that in and have an excellent way of making statements, as the member from Regina Capel did earlier today.
I'm sure the Honourable Member is not. is not arguing for shenanigans to continue. I mean, I wouldn't want that, and I would just want the question asked and find out what's going to happen on both sides so that we can get on. And the honourable member for Saint-Jean, l'honorable député, a des questions qui lui viennent. Elle a 6 minutes.
The honourable member for Saint-Jean has 6 minutes for questions.
Of the day first.
Government orders, Government Bills Senate, resuming debate at second reading of Bill S4, an act to amend the Criminal Code and the Identification of Criminals Act, and to make related amendments to other acts, COVID-19 response and other measures.
Alors nous allons continuer avec l'honorable député de...
Very well. The honourable member for Saint-Jean has 6 minutes and 45 seconds. Questions and comments. The honourable member for Beauce. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I greatly appreciated my colleague's speech earlier. I have a simple question for her. We talk a lot about improving technology. Now, I'd like to hear from her on audio conferencing. Of course, video conferencing is important too, but what does she think of audio conferencing? The honourable member for Saint-Jean. Well, that was something that was raised in the Barr report when the bill was originally debated, because audio conferences can sometimes be used when it's not possible to have a video component, but the interpretation will be restricted. And that's why I'm glad that the legislation will be reviewed in 3 and 5 years to see if things are really working and whether procedural guardrails are being maintained. And so things may evolve a bit when it comes to procedural guarantees and fairness. Perhaps that will be one of the parts of the bill that will ultimately disappear at that point.
Questions and comments. The honourable member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wonder through you to my honourable colleague if she feels, like I do, that reducing court backlogs is so important that this bill should have been introduced much earlier in this parliamentary sitting, and whether she could share her thoughts with the House as to why that wasn't the case.
Honorable député de Saint-Jean.
The honourable member for Saint-Jean. I'd like to thank my colleague for Skeena-Bulkley Valley. Yes, indeed, of course. We've come back to this so many times. We know that this government triggered elections and all sorts of good legislation died on the order paper. We know that elections are expensive. And they're even more expensive when they're just triggered in a willy-nilly manner and all the good work ends up going for nothing. But specifically when it comes to backlogs in the justice system, I do not think that this bill is a silver bullet. We need to remember that. This is only one part of the work. We shouldn't think that just because we have S4 that we don't need to work hard in other areas of the legal system or other parts of the application of the criminal code to reduce backlogs. There is a great deal of work to do, and S4 doesn't cover everything.
Comments, questions et commentaires? L'honorable député de...
The honourable member for Joliette. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for her speech. If we want to improve the entire legal system, well, here we're talking about connectivity, but I'd like to hear from my colleague on issues on the parole board, on the appointment of judges, and also on the existence and use of the liberalist system. Thank you. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. I did mention that in my speech, but with regard to connectivity, one of the risks I see here is that a disparity may be created between different regions. That some people may have to show up in person to a court because they don't have good connectivity when you live in certain areas. Or conversely, in some areas, it may be easier to use audio conference, and that some people may be pressured to use that tool or video conference when they could appear in person. So there might be a disparity in the treatment of people living in different areas, and that's something that the House and the Independent Commission could look at.
Questions et commentaires. Questions and comments, the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. In the member's comments earlier, before question period, she made reference to facial expressions and, things that would be lost upon if, in fact, it went virtual. Would you not agree that those type of considerations would be taken into account in situations that might be of concern to whether it's a defense lawyer or the attorney itself, the Crown?
Honorable député de Saint-Jean.
The Honourable Member. Madam Speaker, one cannot take into consideration something that one is not aware of. And just like we see here when we use video conference in the House, we don't have a full understanding of what's going on around. It's not just someone's facial expression. It could be the fact that someone's fidgeting with their feet, that they're passing a note to their lawyer, or the reaction in the room. We could maybe see a witness's reaction to another witness's remarks and how they react to what's happening in the courthouse. So the frame that we see on a screen doesn't give us all of the information. There are other factors, and some information could be lost, and that needs to be considered when this legislation is reviewed. There may be a risk that lawyers may agree between themselves at the beginning to use video conference, and then during the case, they realize that something is getting lost and that things need to return to in person, and that will actually reduce efficiency rather than increase it. So I hope that this matter will be considered when the bill is reviewed. What happens when the parties no longer consent to use video conference?
Reprise du débat, the Honourable Member for Sherwood Park for Saskatchewan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm going to take the unprecedented step of sharing my time with the member for Vaughan Woodbridge. I hope that's some encouragement for him to see the light on some issues. We are co-chairs of the Canada HoC Parliamentary Friendship Group, and I would invite members of the House to watch their inboxes for upcoming events. My remarks will be a little bit more abbreviated than usual today because of some other commitments. I do want to speak on Bill S4. And the context of S4, the bill we're debating, is some proposals from the government around measures related to digital access to various aspects of our criminal justice system. But the larger context of this is that we have a government right now that so many Canadians are experiencing as a government of delay. Canadians, I think, defining impression of this current Liberal government is significant delays in terms of being able to access vital services that they need. We've had outrageous delays for people trying to access passports, standing in incredibly long, sometimes dangerous lines, needing to be there from early in the morning. We have totally unacceptable delays in our immigration system. People waiting to sponsor vulnerable refugees who have to wait, in some cases, 3 years or more before they can bring vulnerable refugees to this country, waiting to be reunited with spouses, to have employees come to the country. So we have delays when it comes to passports, delays when it comes to immigration, delays when it comes to